Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to continue with our introduction to programming with Python series. So this is going to be video number 13 in our series. So we're going to be learning about loops in Python in this series. So loops that does not only apply in Python, but also applies in other programming languages. So once you understand the concepts of loops in Python, you'll be able to shift the same concept to other programming languages. Just that the way they apply there, the syntax is different, right? The way they are written is different, but basically loops are just the same things, okay, in other programming languages. So we're going to be covering loops in Python. And loops, what's a loop basically? A loop, whenever you want to do something in a loop, like in a repeated manner, right? You want to do something maybe for 10 times in a repeated row, you'll be using loops, right? When you want to do something, as long as a certain condition is true, you'll be using loops. And in Python, there are two types of loops. There are for loops and there are while loops, okay? So let's say that you want to print hello world 10 times on the screen. One way you can do this is actually just print hello world, just like print and then quote hello world and then repeat that line 10 times, right? So that's one way you can do it. I need to print hello world 10 times. What if you want to do that in a much simpler way? And that's where loops come in. So using a loop, you can tell the loops how many times you should print or how many times it should execute a given code to print hello world on the screen. So something like that. So when we want to do something in a repeated manner, that's like a loop, you'll be using a loops in Python. And there are two types of loops I mentioned, for loops and while loops, okay? Okay, so once I mentioned this, the different types of loops in Python, let's go ahead and actually solve the question that we had last time. So in the last video, we had a couple of questions that we wanted to solve. And these questions are basically, there are two types of these questions. The assignments basically that you wanted to solve in the last tutorial. So in the last tutorial, I gave you an assignment, and in this tutorial, we're going to write the solution to that assignment. Once we have that solution written, then we'll move on to learning about loops. So let's go ahead and actually implement the solution for the last assignment. Again, if you don't want to find the solution, just feel free to skip to the part where we start loops. But just for the sake of other people who want to see the solution, let's actually write the solution for the assignment. Okay, so I'm inside of my VS Code, and I'm going to go into my assignments folder, and I'm going to go ahead and delete everything as we have been doing. So once I deleted everything, we need to get the user's input, right? I need to convert this user's input into a float object, okay, a float object. And once we have that, you're going to go ahead and multiply the input by 5, and you're going to check if the price of the car is 5 times less than the input, the actual income of the vehicle, of the user's income. And once that's possible, we're going to go ahead and tell the user I can buy the car if it is if the price of the car is 2 times, if the user's income is 2 times the price of the car, then the user can purchase that car, but to give the user a warning, else the user will not be able to purchase the car. So I haven't written this solution myself, so we're going to go through it all of us. So we're going to learn. If I make any mistakes, we'll learn through it, and that's the best way to do it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take the user input. So I'm going to say income, and this income is going to be of type float, and it's going to be equals to, I'm going to say float, and I'm going to say input, and I'm going to say this one is going to be the income of the user. So I'm going to simply say type in your income. So type in your income, just like this. Type in your income, just like that. So once I have that income of the user specified, the user types in the income. We're going to convert the income into a float object. You're going to store it in the variable called income. Okay, so once I have that income, I'm also going to have a constant, going to be car price. So car underscore price, and this is going to be a constant, right? So it's going to be a car price, and this constant is just going to refer to a car price, so the price of the car. And it's going to be, let's say the car price is going to be of type integer, and let's say the car price is around 50. Okay, let's just say 50 or 500. Okay, let's just say 50. Okay, so once we have this, now we're going to go ahead and check if the user's user's income is 5 times the price of the price of the car. So we can do that by using this the double forward slash division, and you get back the how many times is divisible, like the quotient. Okay, so I'm going to say user, like let's say that car user income. Okay, car user income. Okay, so I'm just going to create car user income, and it's going to be of type integer because we're going to do a division, right? We're going to say we're going to take the income of the user divided by the price of the car. So we're going to be car price. Okay, and car price is a constant. That's why I'm using uppercases for naming it. And I told you uppercases in Python, whenever I use all the variable name as uppercases, that's like going to be a constant, and this is going to be a constant in our code, right? Because we assume that the car's price doesn't change. Okay, so we're going to take the income of the user, and you're going to find its quotient if we divide it by the price of the car. You're going to go ahead and write the if statement. So if the car user, sorry, this will be car, let me just say car underscore user income is greater or equals to 5 times, is greater or equals to 5, right? We're going to go ahead and execute it. So print u can buy can buy this car. Okay, something like that. So that's it. So sorry for that pop-up that was blocking the view. So I'm going to say else L if, right? I'm going to have an L if. I'm going to say car underscore user income is greater or equals to 2 times, right? Is actually 2 times. Let's just say it's 2 times, exactly 2 times. You're going to go ahead and simply do the following. So we're going to go ahead and say print. You're going to say you can buy this car, but you have to save more. I think I'm doing a typo because I can't really see what I'm typing. You have to save more, just like that. So you can buy you can buy this car, but you have to save more. Okay, so once I have this done, I'm also going to else if those two conditions are not met, you're going to simply say print you okay, you cannot buy this car. Okay, so that's it. So that's basically the code. So we're going to do a modulus divider. We're going to check if the users the price of the car divided by the income is at least 5 times, means that the income is 5 times more than the car, right? So if that's true, you're going to print you can buy this car. If it's exactly 2 times, right? If the income the car's income the income divided by the price of the car gives us at least 2 times, like 2, right? Means that the user's income is twice the price of the car. Then you can say you can buy the car, but learn to save up. Also, you can say you cannot buy the car. So that's basically the code. So I'm just going to go here and simply run it. So I'm going to say Python 3. If you're on Windows, remember it's Py, okay? If you're on MacBook, also it's Python 3. Okay, so I'm going to type in my income. Let's say my income is 2500, right? So 250. And if I run that, I can buy the car because 250 divided by 5, that's 5 times, right? So let me run the code again. Let's say that is 2 times 100. You can buy the car. You can buy this car. Okay, now we have an issue here. You can buy this car, but it's only my income is okay. You cannot buy this car. Sorry, my bad. So that's okay. That's correct as well. So I thought I typed in 100 at the first time. So let's now type in 100. And you can say now you can buy the car, but you need to save more because at least our income is twice the price of the car, right? So that's basically the code for that assignment. So good. So once we have that done, let's jump back into looking at loops in Python. So let's jump and look at loops in Python. So I'm going to create a file here, and I'm going to call this file Python part3.part13.py. Okay. So once I have this file created, let's move on to jump in. Let me just write a comment here and say loops in Python. So there are two main types of loops in Python. There are while loops and then there are for loops. So let's start with while loops. So while loops, just like that. So while loops. Let me just write the syntax for while loops. So we say while and use the while, and while is a keyword in Python. So whenever I tell you a keyword, something is keyword in a programming language, or basically in this Python, meaning that it's reserved for the programming language. It means that your variables cannot be while. You can name a variable while, okay? And I'll show you just in a second something. So we're going to say while, and then we're going to pass in a condition, and this is going to be a Boolean condition. And whenever this condition is true, we're going to say execute. So execute a given statement. Execute statement right here, okay? Good. So let me just go ahead and bring this here, and let me just tab this, okay? So remember that you should always tab. So you say while and a condition and then a colon and then new line, and then you tab, okay? Press the tab key to tab your code, which is going to be executed in case the condition up here is true. So this code will only be executed if this condition is true, else the code won't be executed, okay? That's how a while loop works, okay? So let me just go ahead and say, let me say I have x, and x is going to be of type integer, and it's going to be 10, just like this, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do the following. So I'm going to say while x is less than 20. So while x is less than 20, you want to go ahead and print. I'm going to go ahead and print x. So while x is less than 20, we are going to go ahead and print x. So looking at this code, what do you think? Do you think that what do you think is going to happen? Are we going to continuously print x without stopping, or are we going to stop at some point? Okay, just pause the video and think about it. So as long as x is less than 20, means this is going to be a true statement, right? A true boolean true. This code is going to be executed, and we're going to print x. So think about it. Are we going to execute printing this statement forever? Means you're going to print x forever. So let me just write the code, and so you guys can see how it's going to work. So I'm just going to change directory into my basics folder, and then let me do Python 3. If you're on Windows, it's Py. Okay, so I'm going to say this is going to be part, and then this is going to be part 13, and then complete that. So you can see my computer right now is just printing 10, 10, 10, 10. So I'm even scrolling up, but my computer was just printing 10 all the long. So that's an example of something called infinite loops in Python. In programming generally, they are called infinite loops. It means that they never stop. Means that as long as this condition is true, this code will be executed, right? So how do you make sure that we don't execute this code until forever? So I'm just going to go ahead and simply say 1. So whenever we print x, right? So at first instant is to check x is 10, right? So is 10 less than 20? That's true. So it's going to go ahead and print x. It's going to print 10. And then it's going to go and say x plus equals to 1. So now it's going to take 10 plus 1. It's going to be 11. So x is going to be 11. So it's going to come up here. You check, is 11 less than 20? Yeah, that's true. So it's going to go ahead and print this. So it's going to repeat this, and then after printing, it's going to go ahead and add 1 to x. So x will be 12. It's going to repeat this until it's going to reach a point where this statement will be false. And under which condition will this statement be false? When we reach 20, right? Because 19 is less than 20, so that will be true. But if we reach 20, 20 is not less than 20. 20 is equals to 20, so it's going to be false. So if we reach a point where x is 20, this statement is going to be false, so we'll stop printing. Okay, we'll stop executing this code here, right here. So let me just go ahead and run the code again and show you to you. So you can see we printed x only this amount of time, and we stop whenever we reach 19, because that's when the statement becomes this statement becomes false, right? Because when you reach 20, x becomes 20, right? So the last time we printed was 19. So when you reach at this point it was 19 the last time. So 19 plus 1 is 20, and if you come up here, 20 is 20 less than 20? No, that's false. So we stop executing, and that's why we have up to 19 printed out in the terminal. So good, that's how a while loop works. So we just keep a condition, and as long as the condition is true, we can just go ahead and execute whatever we have in the answer in this block right here. So I mentioned earlier on that we have something called infinite loops, and infinite loops are just loops that repeat themselves over and over again as long as the condition is true. So how do you write infinite loops in Python? So you can one way do infinite loops in Python just by saying true, just by saying this, right? Just by passing this here, and let's just write pass. So pass is another keyword in Python, and meaning that you just telling Python that you're not going to keep any code under this block, and that's basically what pass does. So just tell Python to pass, right? Basically pass. So as long as this condition is true, and the condition is always going to be true, so the code is constantly going to execute that, and that we call that an infinite loop. So it never really stops. It just continues going over and over and over again. It never really stops, and that's how you can create an infinite loop in Python. And if you're programming, be very, very careful that you don't run into infinite loops, because sometimes your computer can even get stuck or crash or do something like that. So especially if you're using computers that are not very powerful, they can crash whenever running into an infinite loop. So be very careful when working with a loop, while loops, and make sure that you're not running into infinite loops. Okay, so that's all about while loop. So now let's move on to another type of loop, which is known as the for loop. And you're going to use I'm going to give you an assignment where you'll be required to use the while loop to solve a given question. So you get to practice more on that. So let me move on to the part where we're looking at for loops. So these are going to be for loops, just like that. So we have for loops. So how do you go ahead and work with for loops in Python? So we just say for x in range, so range, and then you can pass in a given range of values. Okay, so we can say for x in range 10, and what we're going to go ahead and do is simply print x, just like that. So this is basically what you're simply going to go ahead and do. Okay, so we're going to say we're going to have a for loop. So we're going to say for x in range of 10, right? So it's going to move from 0 until 10 until 9, basically, because in ranges the last value up here is ignored, right? So it's going to move from 0 until 9. Okay, so let's just go ahead and print x in that range. So for all the values in that range, print x. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and run the code again. So run the code, and you can see we printed from 1 to 9, right? From 0 to 9, basically, because ranges start from 0 and go all the way until 9. So if you want to repeat something 10 times, maybe printing hello world 10 times, maybe just do this and just say hello world. Okay, so instead of copying and pasting hello world 10 on 10 different lines, you can do the same thing just by using a for loop. So we pass in here for 10, and this for each of the iterations you're going to go ahead and print you're going to go ahead and execute this code right here. Okay, so once I go ahead and run this again, you can see we have hello world, hello world, hello world, and this should be 10 times, because 0, if you count from 0 to 9, that's 10, right? So yeah, and if you want to go ahead and include 10, let's say we're printing out x as well. So print x. So now you should see x should go until 10, because if you say range, the last value is going to be ignored. Okay, so it's not inclusive. So you can see we start from all the way from 0 and went all the way to 10, because we stayed range of 11, the last number will be ignored. So that's how you can work with ranges, how you can work with for loops in Python. And I used to do something repetitively by using fewer or less number of code, right? So yeah, that's one of the great advantages of using loops in Python. So what this range simply does, it creates something like a list, or you can think of it a list of numbers. So it will start from 0, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally 10, right? Because it's going to go until 10. Okay, the 11 will be ignored. Okay, so that's how it works in the background. So I can simply copy this right here and paste it here. So with this data type is called a list in Python. So I'll show how a list works in Python. Okay, so we are saying for x in range, for x in this value, print out hello world. So we can also for x in this range, let me just make it more easier for you to understand. I'm just going to say x. So for x in this list of values, print x. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the code again, and we get back that value right there. So if I add another value 10, I may say 11, it's going to also go ahead and put that print 11 basically. Okay, and one way you can do this much more cleaner is by putting this in a variable and referring to that variable. So you can say these are called lists in Python, and look at lists in the upcoming video. So I can just say go ahead and create a variable right here. I'm going to say list, and I'm just going to go ahead and specify it right here. So that's all. So for the, okay, let's say my list. So my underscore list, just like that. So for x in my list, so it's going to be for x in each of those values. So on the first iteration, x will be 0. Second iteration, x will be 1. Third iteration, x will be 2, and all the way until 10. Okay, until the end of the list basically. So each time we go through and we repeat a execution instead of a loop is called an iteration. So on the first iteration, x will be 0, right? On the second iteration, x will be this. So one assignment I can give you, I can tell you to add for me all the numbers instead of this list right here. So all you can do is you can just use a for loop. So you can just simply have another value. I can say sum, and sum is going to be of an int, right? So type int, and by default let's say 0, right? So because all these are integers, so if you add integers, you get integer at the end. So we're going to say sum plus equals to x. So that's basically it's going to do add all those values, and then simply you can print it out, print out sum. Okay, so one thing when we're working with for loops, also one thing you have to know is that indentation. That's really something that a lot of beginners in Python confuse. So I can't stress this enough. Indent your code always. Okay, so make sure that it has some spaces from the baseline right here. Okay, so that make sure all your code always has some space from the baseline. Okay, so once I have this done, I'm just going to go ahead. It's going to, on the first iteration, x is going to be 1, x is going to be 0. So it's going to take 0 plus 0 is going to be 0. On the second iteration, x is going to be 1. So 0 plus 0, which is sum, plus 1, which is x, is going to be 1. So now sum is going to be 1. On the third iteration, x is going to be 2, and sum is going to be 1. So 2 plus 1 is going to be 3. So sum is going to be 3. So it's going to repeat this until the end of the list, and you're going to get the final answer. So if we run this, this should return to us the sum of this. So if I run it, you get 55. So if you add up all these numbers inside of this list, you'll get 55. And that's how you can do the same thing using a for loop. Okay, so you might think, okay, why would I want to add these numbers? I can just go ahead and add them myself. In programming, you have really huge data sets to work with, and really you don't want to sit down the whole day counting numbers, and that's what computers are for, to automate tasks and simplify tasks. Okay, so yeah, that's how we can use for loops in Python. And I hope you guys understand how for loops work. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. I'll do my best to get back to you. And one tip, one fancy tip I want to give to you before we end this tutorial, let me just comment this part out. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and comment this part out. And one fancy tip I want to give you before we end this tutorial is just working with ranges. So I'm going to say for x in range. Okay, I'm going to so in the range you can go ahead and specify where to start from. So I'm going to start from 2, and you're going to go where to end. You're going to end at 20. So we're basically going to end at 19, and then you can specify the step, like how many steps you should skip, like how many intervals between each value. So you can go ahead and say print and then x here. So let's see what we get. Okay, so this 2 is going to be the start, 20 is going to be the end, and then finally how many to skip. So if you start with 2, we print 2, and then you're going to skip 2 values. So we're going to skip 3 and 4, and then we'll print another one. Okay, something like that if I'm not mistaken. So if I run it, you can see we can print 2, and then we skip 2 values, we go to 4, we printed 4, we skip 2 values, we went to 5, I went to 6, we skip 2 values, we went to 8, we skipped 2 values, we went to 10, we went to 12, and then all the way. So you can see we ended at 19, and 19 is not included if you consider that you are skipping value. So if you want to go ahead, you can say, let's say 2022, and that's going to go ahead and include 20. We're going to say 23 and up here, and it's going to go ahead and include 22 as well, because the last value is ignored, right? So if I run the code again, now you can see we also have 22 in here. So great, that's how it works. Okay, that's how loops work in Python, and great. So let's go ahead and see what assignment I have for you. So I don't have any assignments for you guys today. So yeah, thanks for watching. Again, if you are new to the channel, please kindly consider subscribing if you are new to the series and have any questions, or if you are not new to the series but you have any question that you want to ask, let us know in the comment section below. I can reach out to you, or anyone out there can reach out to you. Okay, again, we are all learning out here, so don't feel shy to ask questions that you think might be okay. This is a bit too easy, but just go ahead and ask it. Okay, don't feel anything bad about asking questions, because that's the best way we learn, and we are all up here learning and trying to improve on ourselves daily, right? So yeah, that's the whole point. So let us know in the comment section below if you have any questions. Again, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell if you have any questions. Okay, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.